Good morning. All right. Well, we've got lots of stuff to go through here. Let me get this up. So, big newsreel this morning. Apparently, Remax is being purchased by Real. Um, this is fascinating to me because I think it's going to be a complete hot mess. Um, One, I know Remax was in considerable debt. Uh, and Remax is a franchise company being bought by a corporate company. It's going to be a web of a total disaster. But I think there's a lesson here. The lesson is if you're in business and you're not willing to innovate as time goes on, you're probably going to end up exiting stage left. And Remax is probably a good example of that because they didn't really innovate as a company keeping up with the industry like the rest of the industry did. And they're exiting stage left. Does that make sense? But I think it's a lesson for all of us. Like, we have to innovate, whether it's AI or social media or value proposition, or I guess the writing might be on the wall. We would exit stage left at some point, right? Anyway, just hit the newsreel this morning. Any questions, thoughts, comments before I move on? Austin Sizemore, my
You know, Brett,
co-host.
I think that I've had a couple of conversations this morning with my friends back home that are at Remax. And from their perspective, it's interesting because they've complained and complained for many moons about how their technology is just very behind the times and very lacking. So I think that they're potentially excited for the tech that may be on the horizon. But the common theme that I've talked to three of my friends back home is, they like how Remax has this brick and mortar option, and coming from or having some experience and time at a tech company that's cloud based, I think there may be some margin for challenges there with some of their people, especially the longtime players that have been there for some time, that may be resistant to going cloud based or having that as an option. So I think it'll be interesting to see, just as this rolls out, how it's going to play out, right? It looks like Remax isn't getting converted to Real immediately. It looks like they're going to kind of have this middle ground that's like Real Remax as their corporate name for a bit and slowly make a transition. But it's still, I think, too early to really tell what the impact will look like for those agents.
I was laughing with Matt Pitts this morning because, it's been a rumor for 2 years that KW was going to buy Remax. And it probably wasn't that good of a buy. It was full of debt. So anyway, just hit the newsreel. A couple comments. I don't want to just glaze through it. All right, I want to start with this article. Good morning, Rick.
Morning.
Um, there is an article on Housing Wire that says housing demand shockingly positive even as the Iran war continues. So I want to put an opinion out there for a minute and then get some commentary. And the reason I want to start with this is I think this is a true statement. And before we start looking at numbers, obviously, I think the numbers tell the story of what this article is talking about. But my opinion is, and it's a little bit of a sad opinion, is the consumer confidence and the public, it's my opinion, is a little bit numb to geopolitical events these days. And the reason I say that is if you rewound the clock 20 years, I think the whole world would have shut down if we had this conflict going on. Like it would have been a hyper focus. The, the economics of our country would have just stopped for a period of time, probably. Where today, not that they're not concerned about it or paying attention to it. I just think they're more numb today around it than they were maybe 10, 20 years ago. And the positive side of that is our housing market's doing great and it's improving. And I don't know. What are your thoughts? I love giving my opinions, hoping somebody would argue.
Brett, I think that as time has gone on in the last two years, maybe even longer than that, maybe pre-pandemic, there has just been so much exposure in terms of media news that I think our consumers are more focused on their own agenda and what they need to advance their situation forward, as opposed to getting lost in the noise of what's maybe going on a global scale. I mean, that doesn't mean that they're not staying up to date and having questions around what those impacts look like. But the reality is for your average consumer, there's so much to keep up with. I think people are just back to looking at their scenario and figuring out what's driving the needle in their household versus what's going on around them.
Well, a lot of it comes back to not feeling personally threatened in the current scenario. I think if we woke up tomorrow and felt like there was a viable threat physically and in our country, it would probably change things. To most of us, it feels like it's just a long ways away. And certainly, their intelligent people recognize the relevance of what's going on. But at the same time, to Austin's point, we've kind of become somewhat immune to shocking news. Like it's just every day there's something. And so, whether good or bad, I think that's part of where we are as a culture.
And I think it's turning out to be a good thing for the housing market, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. The same
So
way
there's
COVID, my expectation early on in the COVID, reality is that this is going to be awful. And it is awful in some ways, but for the industry, I was stunned by the absolute opposite of what I thought would happen happened. And so
mhm.
I think to some degree, some of this comes back to expect the unexpected and just accept the gift of any circumstance if it's good.
Yep. If you look at this black line, the black line is 2026. So we've looked at this chart before. We started the year really strong. The black line was outpacing the previous 2 years in pending home sales. And then right around February is when the conflict started and the inflation started happening, oil prices started happening, interest rates started going up. So there was a little bit of a stall right here. But then we started pacing really good again. But what's happened in the last 2 weeks is this black line has really taken off comparatively to the previous 2 years. And, I was looking uh, Midtown's on my mind right now because I just recently looked at the numbers. They're having a huge April. I didn't say that in March. They had a good March, but they're having a huge April right now. And it just goes to show that um, if you asked me 30 days ago, I would have said, I don't know what the spring and summer is going to look like. You ask me today, I'm like cautiously optimistic, excited that the spring market might actually happen and the summer is going to be pretty strong. Um, and I think interest rates are going to drive a lot of it, right? And the interest rates are holding and actually have come down as of recent. So I don't know. What do you think?
I
The
think those
graph
rates are really what's driving, right? I think we had a lot of people in that March, April period sitting on the fence waiting to see what was going to happen. And as a result, of rates coming down just a little bit and holding, people have gotten a little more confidence in the market and they're moving.
There you go. Well, Friday, we have our top 10% agent mastermind and our state of the industry. We are going to go extremely deep into statistics on Friday. And little teaser, uh, the web page we put up here every Monday, the real estate stats has been completely reimagined and directly connected to the MLS and AI enhanced. And you're going to get access to it first at the State of the Industry on Friday. And we've been building it for a couple months. It's extremely powerful. Take this 10x. So I really would encourage all of you to be at our State of the Industry on Friday. It's free this time. We usually charge 20 bucks, and we used to give you a Coke and a popcorn and who knows what, but we just decided to make it free for everybody. So there was no barrier of anybody being there because we absolutely want you there. All right, let's hit some numbers here. So 585 active status changes, Fulton County. 157 went under contract in the last 7 days. Previous 7 days was 160. Considerable increase from what we were seeing previously. So there, right there is showing that demand conversation, right? There's 45 sitting and coming soon. 302 are pending, with the exception of this 309 back here. That's pretty high number year to date. And the usual canceled expireds, and then 319 closed out in the last 7 days. That's the biggest number we've seen year to date in Fulton County. But that just goes to show like April's starting to really be exciting, and I'm very excited for what to coming in May. That's Fulton County. DeKalb County, 296 active status changes, 108 went under contract, largest year to date. 25 coming soon, 179 pending. It's not the largest year to date, but certainly up there. And then 176 closed in the last 7 days. Austin, that's your backyard. What do you think?
I mean, that's accurate, Brett. I mean, it is moving and grooving into cab. We've got more agents in our office having business and success right now than I think we've seen all year. As we're tiptoeing into month end close here, April is looking, I mean, very, very strong, even waves ahead of where we ended last April.
All right. Cobb County. 366 active status, 110 went under contract, 214 pending. Big numbers. 212 closed out, largest year to date, 7 day total. Big numbers, guys. Any thoughts on the numbers, Rick?
I mean, the progression looks incredibly optimistic, as you pointed out. So lots of
I
reason
just
to believe we're going to have a strong early summer if, things continue to roll along like they are with, I mean, there's a lot of distraction in the early conversation around the media and the war. And I mean, so what now what feels like the energy and, locally people are moving when they need to move and making decisions.
if you're an agent on here listening, what do you think about? Talk to me. Where's your brain go? You hear this, you see us talking about it. What are you feeling? What are you thinking about?
That's good
So
news. Going in the right direction.
Buyers are back. Listings are back. We're
Good,
moving forward. I think that we're trending upwards, absolutely, year over year, especially.
good. I mean, the numbers show it, but the feeling on the ground is the most important, right?
Hey, Brett. I'll add, as someone that works with the boards and is in conversation with people, what stands out to me is that I think the people that are getting business right now is because they have pivoted. And y'all talk about it all the time. Rick, I know you mention it all the time as well. I mean, those agents that are getting business have pivoted into this market and they have figured out how to find those that need to sell. And I think that's the difference. And it's hard. And I think every deal that comes through these closing attorneys comes with a story behind it that is not the easiest. And it's good to remember that because when we're in the middle of it, there's a lot of pain right now. But it's happening. It's just taking, I think, more work, and it's not just coming, right?
Yep.
Brett,
Anybody else?
I think Manny had the right word there is pivoting and finding the people that need to move. And, I think really since we've been post-pandemic, most of the transactions that we've seen happen really stem out of a need versus a want. And as time from the pandemic has lengthened, right, as we've gotten further away, a lot of those people that were sitting in that need boat a year ago, 2 years ago, who didn't act are showing back up in this market ready to go.
Good.
And they've conceded that the rate differential in what they had in their prior refinance and the current opportunity to move isn't dramatic enough to keep them from moving forward when you talk about it being a need, to Austin's point, as well as Manny's.
All right, moving on. So we've talked about this before, but the one question every agent gets asked is how's the market? And that's the hands down the most popular question you'll ever get asked. However, most agents are missing the opportunity with how they answer that question. And most people say, "Oh, it's good," or "It's hot," or "It's slowing down," and they give a low language answer to that question. Yet the challenge is, how do we elevate our language? How do we elevate our knowledge so that when we answer that question, the person asking walks away with confidence that, hey, they have expertise, they have knowledge. I want to engage this person around real estate. And it could be simply something as inventory levels, how they've changed, average sales price trends, days on market, what's happening in specific price points and neighborhoods. The challenge is, if you're showing up to this call every Monday, you should be getting dialogue and data and talking points that gives you a richer, elevated answer to the question, how's the market? And that should translate to money in your pocket. That's why we do this call. We're trying to raise the level, right? Elevate the language, elevate the skill, elevate the knowledge of our people, because I think it really matters. And I keep reading articles like this and I keep putting them up here because I'm confident it matters. Are you? And do you take that to heart? Thoughts?
It's all about interrogating reality and getting to the baseline of what their needs are and solving a problem. And I think having a universal answer to how's the market, you miss a huge opportunity to reveal a need or an opportunity. So I think it's all about flipping the script, knowing your inventory levels, knowing average sales price trends and days on market and absorption rates. It's about using terminology that reflects professionalism, but it's also about curious inquiry. And if that's a skill that I think just requires practice and intentionality.
Absolutely. All right. You're not gonna like this one. Well, actually, no, let me go to this one. This one you're not gonna like. So a buddy of mine is a guy named Jeremiah Taylor. He owns a product called BrokerBot, which is a big AI tool we've been looking at. But he wrote this article, and I thought, oh, this triggered me for a minute. It says if you're just an information gatekeeper, AI just fired you. And what he means in this is the value proposition of the real estate agent for years and years was exactly this. We had the listings, we had the data. If you needed access to properties, that was a big part of the value proposition of working with us. Well, that job is gone. And AI has really kind of fired people from uh, being the data source, being the access source. Like, you think about, if somebody wants to go see a house, they can click a button on Zillow these days and get a tour of a property. Uh, you can tell when open houses are. You don't have to drive by and look for a sign. Like, it's now on Zillow, it's on Realtor.com, it's on Homes.com. Like, they don't necessarily need us specifically for access. And going back to the comment I made about the Remax Reel, if you're not innovating your value proposition over time, you probably will exit stage left. And it's not to say we're not relevant. I actually love this chapter of our journey because it means we're more professional, we're more consulting, we're more advice and opinions of helping people make great decisions, but only if we take that to heart and elevate our value proposition. But
I mean, I just hit chat with what's the absorption rate currently in Cobb County for Georgia for active homes in Q1 of 2026. It said Cobb County's running roughly 3 to 3.5 month absorption rate, which translates into about 28 to 33%. And what makes me laugh is it's so easy. Anybody, so what now what needs to be like, what's the question behind the question and why is it relevant to an individual on a particular street in a particular house? That's where AI is going to suffer. And that's also where you'll suffer if you're not keenly aware of the nuances of that language and helping consumers recognize your value. And it's the minutia, it's the detail, and it's the myopic view that's going to matter, not the scaled back view from a macro view, if you will. But it's always
pause.
been interpreting emotion and being able to help guide that emotion to better decision making, not data.
That right there. So EQ is going to play a big part in leadership as an agent from here on out. I can give a concrete example of that. I have so many clients that have been chat GPTing their way through their decision making. But when it comes to actually positioning an offer, what they don't have necessarily is how to position the offer in regard to the other side or relational awareness, situational awareness, actually being able to learn how to better truly serve your people on an individual level. I think we're going to have to dig deeper relationally, and the people that are list checkers just to get a job done or to generate a lead, I think that those people are going to lose out in the end and the relationships matter.
Mm-hmm. Really
Yeah,
strong, Ashley.
excellent point. If all that matters was data, everyone would make the right decision and make it fast. The emotional construct of decision making, and especially a big decision, is what creates extreme value as an advocate for your client.
Also think a lot of times our consumers, I had a coaching call last week with an agent who was going through trying to get a adjustment on one of their listings. And they said, every time I go to have this conversation, I feel like my client has Chat GPT pulled up and they're typing in my answer and coming back, right? And so I think the reality is the AI gives our consumers just enough information to be dangerous, but it doesn't equip them with what to do with it or how to apply it to their circumstance.
100%.
Well, it may even come down now if a client responds with a certain response, maybe it's more appropriate than ever to go out of curiosity, what's the source of that information so that I can interpret, where you're gathering that opinion.
100%.
Or sometimes there's actually different questions you don't know that you need to be asking.
There
Yep.
you go. All
It's
right.
huge.
Homeownership is reshaping the real estate transaction. We've talked about this before, but if you're not aware, the cost of homeownership's gone considerably up over the previous couple of years. But this article is more about bulletproofing the transaction. It's saying at what point in the process do you get the homeowner's insurance quote? When I sold real estate, it was literally a checkbox you did the day before closing. Like the lender just hounded the buyer to get the insurance done and binded, and it was never an issue. But there's a little bit of a shock factor going on around insurance on property to the point that it should be part of your transaction pending to close checklist earlier in the process. I almost would encourage you to be getting it done during inspection periods, things like that, because you don't want the shock factor of homeowners insurance to be something that's keeping you from getting to the closing table or creating cold feet or something along those lines. Now, partnering with a great lender, they could be doing this, but it doesn't take the responsibility off you as a real estate agent to say, hey, we need to be looking at the cost of insurance early in the process. And, historically, the lender was putting that in the estimates, right? Like the cost of payment and all that stuff. I'm not saying all lenders are created equal, but there's probably some pretty uh, not great lenders out there in the marketplace that might not be on top of insurance because it's not their wheelhouse. It's just something they need. And I think to be a great real estate professional, you should be putting that early in your process these days. Austin, you're shaking your head. Give me your quick thoughts.
I agree on that. I think for many, many years in my agent days, I never was involved with homeowners insurance at all, right? That the lender handled it. You didn't have to worry about it. You didn't think about it. And then in the Chattanooga market in the COVID era, we got these wonderful things called drones flying over your house 2 or 3 days before closing. And then you end up with policies that aren't going to get issued because of a roof or whatever the case may be, right? So at that point, we had to pivot and jump in and be really involved. And what I discovered in that over the last couple of years is a lot of times the lenders are still just checking that box. We have to have it. So let's go find the cheapest rate we can get to push you through. Then a year goes by and your consumer needs to use their policy and they may not have the best coverage or they may not have the coverage that they need for whatever the particular issue is. So being involved early on and really making or building those relationships with good insurance companies and introducing them to your client, I have found creates just a more seamless experience for the consumer and they trust you more because you're advising them versus just hoping for the best.
There you go. All right, I'm gonna hit one last thing. There's an article in the Atlanta Business Chronicle that says real estate agents must watch for this regulatory landmine. So in California, there's a new law that requires real estate agents to disclose AI altered listing photos. And there's a statement here that says, imagine our disappointment when we walked into the condo unit to see that no such cabinetry existed. Not only did that agent break the rules, but they wasted everyone's time. Here's my thoughts. Like th this has evolved over time. Like I remember there was a period of time when agents were photoshopping out power lines or turning a brown grass green or, and then we went into an era of virtual staging. Here's my just random thoughts. I think agents are going to AI alter photos. I just think it's probably going to become part of the practice, but I think there better be a watermark or something on that photo that says AI altered image. And I think you need to land in a place of disclosure around photography, or this is a potential liability going forward, my opinion.
Would
Thought,
definitely agree, Brett.
just don't go change photos because AI is getting really dang good at changing photos. Um, and if you're going to do, I venture to say virtual staging will probably be done a lot with AI in the future, but you better somehow disclose what you're doing, especially if you put it in a public marketing place. Thoughts?
I heard a horror story about somebody photoshopping in a live fire in a non-working fireplace. And after close, they ended up having to come back and actually pay for that fireplace to become working because it was actually shown in the photo as working during the
Yep.
listing.
I think, Brett, it's all in good faith, right? Like we as an agent sit here and it's like, how can we make this listing shine and how can we make this stand out in the best light possible, not thinking that what we may be putting on the internet is misrepresenting what we've got.
Yep. And I don't think virtual staging is a bad thing. I just think you've got to disclose it, right?
Agreed.
Yeah. All right, guys. Happy Monday. We're wrapping the first trimester. And I believe May's going to be, well, it's 4 months, split in thirds. Come on.
We're delivering a really awesome real estate baby.
Depends on how
And
you
it's
want to
yours
call
to
it.
have if you do the work.
There you go. Thanks for making it weird. I believe May's going to be great, guys. So go get it. Have a good one.
We love you
Bye,
guys.
guys.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.